Shalom. Welcome again to Seekers of Meaning, the podcast TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. I'm your host, Rabbi Richard Address. Thank you very, very much for joining us in what we hope will be a very exciting and interesting conversation today. We invite you to visit the Jewish Sacred Aging website for lots of information, jewishsacredaging.com, also the Facebook page. And if you would like to become a sponsor of one of our podcasts or a series of podcasts, just email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. We'll take it from there. So thank you very much for your attention. One of the issues that keeps coming up in so many of our conversations on the workshops and programs that we do for Jewish Sacred Aging is this journey that so many of us, in fact, probably all of us at one stage or another in our lives go through, and that's dealing with grief. And so we are very delighted to welcome from Texas, if I'm not mistaken, Irit Chapnick, director of something called discoverythroughgrief.com. Irit, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. You in San Antonio, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
That is correct.
Now, how's life in San Antonio nowadays?
Well, yesterday it was 100 degrees.
Good.
We had a lot of wind come through, and today the morning started off in the 50s.
Very good. So thank you very much. Let's get right to it. What is Discovery Through Grief, and why did you start it?
Actually, it started in honor of my son, who took his life December 28th, 2020. I did a lot of work on my own to get through that terrible shock. And the process included gathering other people who had also experienced grief and trying to put together a little bit of a workshop to find a way to create something that would honor not only my son, but would also help the participants deal with their grief. And as time went on, we threw questions back and forth. We discussed, should it just be for suicide? We discussed all the other types of grief. And one by one, the participants dropped out for this reason, dropped out for that reason, until it was just me carrying what was to be my creation. And through this all, two elements emerged. One is that creation is very important to working through grief. And the other is that movement is very important. You don't eradicate grief. It stays with you. Pain that is associated with it, the loss that is associated with it, is somehow the word that comes to me is emoliated. I'm not sure if that's a real word, but it's smoothed out, given time, given the process that you're able to put yourself into some kind of creation. So I made a website. The website is Discovery Through Grief. I have an icon, which, as you probably noted, is a Havdalah candle, which separates the first encounters with grief from the learning how to process the grief. What are you going to discover as the survivor of the grief, no matter whether it's grief from losing somebody through love, losing a relationship, either through divorce or the death, losing a job that somebody might have loved through no fault of their own, losing a beloved pet. There are so many types of grief, and there's such a prevalence of grief. And as you stated, as we grow older, grief does seem to have a cumulative effect.
So you mentioned two things that I want to ask you about a little bit, if you unpack them a little bit. One is this idea of creation, and the other is movement. So what do you mean? When you say creation, what are you talking about?
Whether it's writing, whether it's dancing, whether it's painting, bringing something from inside of you to the outside in one of the art forms. And on the website, I have other creators who can help with physical expression, dance, art, writing, something that helps you express what's in your heart in a creative way.
Do you find people sometimes do journaling?
Often.
Yeah.
And that's actually what got me started.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
I worked with Dr. Edith Eger on one of her workshops. We did a lot of journaling, very directed by what she wanted us to find, but definitely journaling has always helped me with expression of feeling.
And what about this movement thing? Is it tied up with the creation, or just help me out here?
It can be physical movement, but it's also knowing that grief is not static.
What do you mean?
It doesn't stay at, or it doesn't have to stay at the same painful stuckness. You know, when you're stuck in a rut.
Oh, yeah.
And you just don't think that the pain is ever going to go away.
Does time heal?
Not on its own.
What do you mean?
It takes doing something with the time that we are given. And healing grief, I don't look at as a brokenness. Some people do, but I don't. I look at it as a function of humanness that we all seem to experience, sometimes sooner, sometimes later, sometimes in differing amounts, but it's a part of the human experience.
In the the workshops that you were involved with and the workshops that you do through discovery through grief, what are some of the real major differences? For example, all clergy have had these conversations. The difference between the grief that comes with a sudden death out of the blue, it's a sudden, nobody expected it. And then the grief that comes, you know what's coming, and it can take years. In the workshops that you've done, in the conversations you've had, what's been some of the conversation around that?
I must use my own experience to answer that question. As my mother was dying, she died from COPD. We knew the end was coming. I don't think really knowing what death was about prepared me for what it was going to be like without her, without that need of wanting to pick up the phone and call her and share something with her. The same with my father. We knew that his death was coming. It did not prepare me for the fact that he wouldn't be there to get instruction from him like I always did. In the case of my son, there was almost an animalistic scream that I emitted because it was so unexpected. And even with doing all of the work, there came a time when I froze. My feelings, I just did all of what I'm saying works. I did creation, I did movement, I did a lot of the psychological, emotional work that was going to be good for me. And still, at some point, I froze. I mean, I made a move from California to Texas, and there was that change to get used to. And in the whole process of that, I froze. And slowly, very, very slowly, I began to thaw. My heart began to open again. And what I learned in that process is that things will set you off. And by the way, I still go to a grief group. I do not lead it here in San Antonio. San Antonio Jewish Senior Services has a grief for loss. I am the only one who had a loss by suicide.
Wow.
But, it's for seniors who have lost spouses or lost sisters or lost a parent. But I still do that because I see the need for when disbelief comes over me, when questioning why, when anger was a hard one to admit for me, when that comes over me, when I get out of a place of acceptance, you're gone. You made the final determination. And I'm usually at peace with that, but not always. And it's those not always times that I'm glad that I have a support group here that allows me to stay grounded in the kind of work that I want to help other people with.
Yeah, it's sometimes the media portrays, the grieving process, and after a certain period of time, well, she should be back to this. It's extremely personal. I think until you walk the walk, you don't realize how intensely personal the grieving process is. You keep Jonathan's memory alive by how?
By working with people. He was a real people person. He could walk into a room and just light it up and spark a conversation. He loved a good time, and COVID was obviously very difficult. The isolation that it demanded and things that for his work were changing. He had spent holidays with family that all had children. He had no children. Once he started feeling depression, he spiraled down very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. And as a tribute to him, so many people donated money. We paid nothing, zero, for his whole funeral because so much money was donated in his name. It was really an outpouring of the love that he had brought into this world.
In your process of doing the grief work, how important was ritual?
Could you be a little bit more specific?
Shiva rituals around the funeral, um, the rituals that accompany grief.
Well, I think that there needs to be a differentiation between grief and mourning.
Okay, talk to
I
me
thi
about that.
I think in Judaism, we have specific time elements that are included for the mourning. Again, remember this was during COVID.
Yeah, that's different. Very
And
different.
and his funeral, people broke with the restrictions of staying isolated. A few family members. It was carried on Zoom, and there were so many people on Zoom that it almost crashed the system because so many people came. I observed the 7-day at home. I got special permission. I mean, my work would have allowed me 3, and I said, "No, I need 7 days." And they gave that to me. We did not wait a full 11 months to put up a headstone. And when we did, COVID regulations had eased up enough. And the rabbi at that time said he was astounded at how many people showed up for the headstone unveiling. I mean, it looked like actually those that didn't come to the funeral came for the unveiling.
Yes.
Um, all of that support was very, very important to me.
Many of my colleagues, myself included, remember sadly those COVID funerals and with restrictions and doing vidui, the deathbed rites on Zoom and shivas on Zoom. It's transformed, literally helped transform the way clergy operated. And even still do. And I'm very sorry that you had to, the whole process that you had to go through is because that's the time you really do need human contact. And it's tough to do that in everybody's little boxes on a Zoom call. Could you talk a little bit about the power, if there was, with you and your family going through this process, and the power in the mourning process of faith in God, faith in community, faith in the future?
Community was a big help. Community was a big help. And it might not surprise you that it was my sister and my other son, and everybody grieves in their own way.
Right.
And everybody remembers in their own way. And emotions were so raw that it was not a time of peace and harmony for the three of us. It was a time of the status quo being completely disrupted. And it's still, he's definitely missed by cousins, by treasured friends, by a woman that he was involved with who still sends me Mother's Day cards, who is in California and visits his grave on his birthday and on the day of his death, who took over his dog,
Mm-hmm.
and they have become true family.
We've just walked through Passover and the Seders. There's a program that I'm involved with here in Southern New Jersey out of the Jewish Family Service here, which also does a lot of the grief work that you are involved with in San Antonio, called the Empty Chair Program. There's a woman here named Riva who has created this program. It's a wonderful program. But there may be some people who have just walked this walk and they've had that first Seder with that empty chair that they would have been sitting, but they're not sitting there. There's that empty chair. If they were sitting in front of you right now and said, help me, what would you tell them based upon your experience and your work?
Mhm. I had two thoughts while you were talking. One was that we hold a space for Elijah. We give him a glass of wine. We open the door and welcome him in a very unritualized way. The same could be done. It's terribly hard. It's terribly hard, especially if they had like a favorite food. In my case, Jonathan loved latkes. So that first Hanukkah, there was no more latke contest with another relative. But going back to Passover, so one is Elijah, and the other is Gestalt therapy that uses the empty chair a lot, and putting yourself in that empty chair. And what would you say? What would you say to yourself, speaking as yourself, but to the emptiness that's there? What would you tell that emptiness? How would you love that emptiness? I mean, love is so important, to love yourself through the whole grieving process, but also to share that love. The love never goes away that you had for the person that's deceased or the beloved pet that was deceased. But in terms of a person, how would you make that person welcome? Because who knows, maybe that person is somewhere up above being a part of the celebration anyway. We don't know.
No, we don't. And what do you say to Jonathan now?
The time that I got mad at him was really very good for me to get that out. I mean, I see a butterfly go by and I'll say, "Hey, buddy." You're fluttering by. I see your beauty. I see what you gave the world. Look what I've done in honor of you. Thank you. I thank him. I thank him a lot because what I've done wasn't me. Whatever strength I've gotten has come a lot from him. So I thank him.
Do you know people, Irit, in your work who go through a loss, go through a death, perhaps go through Shiva, go through the unveiling, but they never mourn. They never, they just put it back inside, put it back inside. Do you know situations like that?
Well, yeah, but it comes out one way or another. You can't really put a lid on things. It never works. I mean, it might for a time being and then come out in a disruption in some other way. I mean, I understand life goes on. I mean, there's a lot of different behaviors that choices that could be made. But I think anytime you try to trap a feeling one way or another, it either comes out as a physical ailment or emotionally down the road.
Irit, the power of love. How powerful is it in the grieving process?
Immensely powerful. Again, I think it starts with the kindness and the gentleness with which you treat yourself. A lot of times, guilt will fill up. I should have done this. I could have done this if I had only done this, if I hadn't done that. We would rather feel guilty than feel helpless. If we were helpless to do anything, that doesn't sit well. So instead, we fill it up with the emotion of guilt. And I think love begins to conquer guilt. If I had spent more time with Jonathan rather than with my husband who was failing from Parkinson's, well, maybe I would have prevented the date from being 12/28/2020, but maybe it would have happened somewhere down the road.
Irit Chapnick, founder of discoverythroughgrief.com. Thank you for sharing your journey and for honoring Jonathan. And I just wish you just peace and long life and lots of good health.
Rabbi Address, thank you so much for this opportunity. It has meant very much more than I've been able to put into words.
You did quite well. So enjoy San Antonio and just stay safe, okay, in this crazy, crazy world.
Thank you so much.
To all of you, thank you very much for joining us on today's edition of Seekers of Meaning, the podcast TV arm of Jewish Sacred Aging. And again, if you'd like to make a donation to help us carry on our work on these podcasts, go to the website, jewishsacredaging.com. There's a conveniently located donate button. And again, if you'd like to sponsor some of these podcasts, just email me at rabbiaddress@jewishsacredaging.com. A big shout out to our producer, Steve Lubetkin, who is a part of Lubetkin Media, who produces our shows in beautiful, beautiful Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So thank you again, Steve. To all of you, especially in this season between Passover and Shavuot, counting the Omer, counting our days, making them sacred, making them mean something through memory and love, as Irit has taught us. To all of you, take care, and until we see each other again on the next Seekers of Meaning, be kind to one another. Shalom.